Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And, I have a very exciting episode for you all this week. I'm joined by Mara from Blackwing Studio, who is super wonderful, and I'm going to introduce her in a second here. But before that, I want to get two things. We have to get some work done here. I want to talk about the Patreon. You can check out the Patreon. It's in the show notes. It's in my link tree. It kind of helps keep the lights on, the mics hot. I do some, some little bonus eps over there that are really silly and, stupid. And if that's what you're into, I would check it out if I were you. But something else is really big that I want to announce is I'm doing a giveaway. I have been very blessed to have received a Speakeasy ticket for the Realm Games 10K that is happening in Columbus, Ohio in October. I believe the weekend of October 22nd. And it's going to be a great weekend. I will be there hanging out, playing. And then after the day one of the 10K, I think it was that Saturday, they have a Speakeasy, which I believe kind of like impromptu happened at their last event where, they a bunch of the players kind of just ended up, having some drinks and playing some games. And this is going to be more of a formal thing after the main rounds of the Saturday 10K. And there's going to be drafts going on. And obviously this is for people over 21, buds over 21. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be hanging out, playing games, drafting, having some drinks, and it's going to be really cool. And there's going to be a lot of great content creators there as well. A lot of great podcasts are also giving away Speakeasy tickets. I know that the folks over at Flesh and Pod announced theirs, and that's very exciting. I love those folks over there. And I kind of thought about how I wanted to do this giveaway for Fresh and Buds, and I thought about what would I want to see. So the way you can win this, and I'll announce this on Twitter in a much more official way, I guess, but I want the buds out there to design a hero card for the class of podcaster. And I want to, and you don't have to do an actual mock-up. You can just type it out if you'd like, but if you want to do a mock-up as well and use my face on the card, sure, go for it. That would be hilarious, and I would love that. So, that is really the only thing you have to do. I would like for the submissions to be in by Nationals. We're going to say that by the weekend of the 23rd or 24th of September. So, this is the official of me kind of announcing this, and I will put out actual details on Twitter and in the Buds Discord, which anybody's welcome to join, and it is in the link tree as well. But that is all the work we got out of the way. Super excited for that weekend, but I am more excited to welcome Mara from Blackwing Studio, who does excellent altars and is an excellent player. How you doing, Mara?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Tommy. I'm pretty excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Now, this is a kind of a couple months in the working, because we got to meet each other in the flesh and blood at Pro Tour New Jersey at the banquet, which I shouldn't have been at. I wasn't a a qualified player, but I snuck in there with Copy Cody, one of the buds, and we kind of made it work from there. But it was a lot of fun. I felt we were kindred spirits right away, and I'm super excited to have you on the podcast finally. How did you enjoy that Pro Tour New Jersey, by the way?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. It's funny. I was literally just telling this story. I was on Pitch Perfect last week, and we were talking about it. I had come into the banquet with a bunch of friends, and Kugane grabbed me and was like, "Hey, me and Tommy are over here on this other table. You're gonna come hang out with us tonight." And we ended up just spending the whole night together, and it was really fantastic.
It was awesome. Kugane, I mean, I think everybody knows how great Kugi is, as he's been become known in the Buds realm. The good old Kugi. Kugane is the best. He's just like such a great guy, and yeah, I mean, he's just, oh God, he just made that whole weekend just that extra little specialness, and hanging out with you that first night was awesome as well. And how was your experience overall though for the whole weekend?
I had a blast. It was such a great moment. Like I've been saying, I've done so many different, like, because I've been in the Magic community for years and years and years, and so I've been to hundreds of Grand Prix and Star City Opens and things like that, and nothing felt like this. Like, I've never been to an event before that felt nearly this big, this communal. Like, it just felt like the energy here was something unlike anything that I've really been at before, and I'm just so glad that I got to be a part of it.
It was a blast, and I'm hoping for all the buds out there and folks attending Lille, or I guess that's how you pronounce it, in France this month. I hope it's just as much of a magical weekend, and kind of a great opportunity for all the players over there in Europe. Unfortunately, I don't think either of us will be there, but that's going to kick that can down the road. We'll be going over to Europe at some point. I'm sure. I think we probably both need passports or something. I don't know the rules, but but we're gonna talk this episode about the worst hero in the game. I think I don't know. I mean, I would say Azalea is probably a little bit worse than. But before we get to the worst hero in the game, and I think a lot of people know which one that is. We're going to learn a little bit about you, Mara. Now, your Flesh and Blood altars are stellar. I would say some of the best I've seen thus far.
Aww.
And, where did they start before this game we love? Were you doing altars for Magic? You mentioned Magic, which is a banned word in my Discord, but on the podcast, we throw Magic around as much as we want.
All right. So yeah, I've been doing altars professionally for about 12 years now, mostly through Magic the Gathering. I was a pretty big staple on the Star City circuit. Like I say, for probably since about 2011, I've been in about one Star City Open every 3 or 4 weeks. So this has been my full-time gig for a while. I actually I got into Flesh and Blood because of my altars, actually, which is kind of a cool thing. I didn't really intend to start playing the game. It was kind of at a point where we were in the middle of COVID, and the big Magic tournaments weren't running, and so I was looking for other ways to kind of extend my revenue. And I'd known about Flesh and Blood for a while, and I was just like, I'm not really interested. I've played a lot of CCGs. I'm not really interested in picking up another one. But nobody's really doing altars for this game, and the game seems like it would lend itself well to that sort of thing. Just like any kind of game where you have cards that kind of start the game front and center, like your heroes and your weapons and your equipments, tend to be really cool to do altars for, just because you don't have to be like, oh, I paid all this money for this cool altar, I hope I get to draw it so people can see it. It's right there. It starts the game out. Everybody who walks by is going to see it. So it's cool to kind of show off. So I was like, yeah, I could maybe just do a couple of altars for this game. And so I figured, I was like, well, I should just learn the basic rules of the game. Just learn just enough that I can understand how the game works, so I know kind of what people are going to want to see, and so I can talk to clients, and if they say like, oh, I want an attack action, I'm like, okay, well, what the hell's an attack action? So I learned the basic rules of the game, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end. Like, I got absolutely hooked into the game from there and just fell in love.
So I have a question about you mentioned that Flesh and Blood kind of lends itself to alters, right? Now, the overall aesthetic of the game, and I would argue, I think personally, I think the card art in this game is excellent, and there's a lot of movement in it and stuff like that for like the actions, and then we have these beautiful equipment pieces and heroes that are just like so cool looking. How did like when you sat down and started looking at these cards initially, because you had seen card art from Magic and other CCGs forever. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you, or was this kind of like, oh, this is great, or were you also thinking, I mean, it's possible you can be like, this is not that great?
No, like I pretty much the art for Flesh and Blood, like you say, it's gorgeous. The artists that LSS hires are absolutely top notch. They're like a couple of them are friends of mine, and just some really talented people, and it's just it's cool to even like just doing like extending art, just taking some of the art that's already there and just kind of enhancing it and changing little bits here and there. Like it's always kind of neat, just adding my own kind of spin to somebody else's already really incredible artwork is always really fun for me.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense. Like kind of like take the groundwork there and kind of continue it, and that's really cool. Now, I want to talk about like art in general. So like you mentioned you've been doing altars for a long time. First of all, like when did you had a gift for being artistic and creative? Because it's not, I think some people just assume people just like were like always this way, or they were always interested in it. Take us through that, because it could not be the case.
So like I've definitely always had kind of a passion for art. I've been drawing and things since I was a kid. I was a menace in like high school because I would perpetually like have a sketchbook out while the teacher's trying to talk. I had so many like complaints to my parents. They're like, she's not paying attention in class, but she's still getting A's. I don't understand. um, but so yeah, like it's just something that I'd always kind of had a passion for, and I just kind of kept on and kept on. I will say this though, for anyone out there who wants to be an aspiring artist, you hear people say like, oh, you had the gift for it. I sucked. I sucked real bad. I can go back and look at some of my old stuff, and I was like, man, I was terrible. But I just kept doing it. I just kept drawing and kept drawing and kept drawing and kept pushing. And so I will say out to any aspiring artists, if you're like, oh well, I can't do this quality that someone who's been doing art for 20 30 years can do, I'm never going to be a good artist. Like it's ridiculous. Just keep on it, keep pushing yourself, and you'll get better. Like it's practice, and it's doing a lot of drawing and a lot of really bad drawings so that you can get to some really less bad drawings, and then eventually some pretty cool stuff.
I think that's like a great kind of lesson to kind of apply to like everything too. I mean, I think some people can look at these great players in the game as well, like Tariq Patel, right? He picked up the game, won U.S. Nationals. It was a great story. Love that story. It was, like, what the heck, like, but I think, and if you can even probably ask Tariq this, I think he would agree that he still has to do work. He has to like continue to learn. It's not like, I'm sure he looks back at some of the VODs from those tournaments. It's like, oh yeah, I that was probably the wrong move, and we can always kind of improve. I mean, coming up on the year of Fresh and Buds, I've looked back some of the original episodes, and my God, they were brutal. But nobody go back and listen to them. I'm going to delete them right after this episode. But now, in terms of art in general, you mentioned sketching. Is there some like TCG art that you enjoy creating?
Uh, um, I kind of like doing all kinds of stuff. I like a lot of character design, a lot of I like doing creature work. Creatures are a lot of
Mhm.
fun, just like weird fantasy creatures and monsters and things like that. Um, but particularly, I kind of enjoy. I like when art tells a story. I like when you can look at a piece and you can like, even if it's like a character, like, okay, why are they dressed the way they're dressed, or what are these like? They have like trinkets that they carry, or they have a sword that's all like scarred up and scratched, and like, that you can look at a piece of art and say like, oh, I can kind of understand who that person is and where they're from and like what's going on in their life. And I love that part about art. I love the little details that really make a character come alive.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So I do want to ask. So gameplay aside, all
Mhm.
right, gameplay aside, what is your favorite looking hero in Flesh and Blood,
Oh gosh. Um
and why is it Leviah?
um I'm trying really hard not to say Prism. Um but I do actually I really like Prism's look. I think she's got that kind of this very like regal, very like powerful, but she's like, because in her art she's like levitating and she's got her like her illusion, her like light illusion kind of wisps and magic around her, and she's in the library. Um, so like it sets the stage for this character. This character
Hmm.
is very like is powerful, is obviously very light aligned, and but like clearly enjoys reading and enjoys her books and her literature and her kind of cloistered little life. And I think just the art personifies that. Although I think Levia's art kind of does the same thing for her.
Hmm.
It's that very I am monstrous and inhuman. And I have sacrificed a piece of my soul for this demonic power. And that comes through really clearly in her art too.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, you can boil it down to Prism's a nerd, and no, and Leviah is cool, hardcore, um, cool person, and anyone who plays Leviah is also cool. No,
Yeah.
but
But even like I just pulled up Levia's art just to kind of even refresh on it. Like, but even in talking about like telling the story,
yeah,
so she's got her demonic, clearly everything. But in the actual art, she's standing in the mansion.
hmm
She's
she's in
standing
the
and she's got the.
monastery, I believe.
No, I think it's actually the
Oh, not the
the mansion of the family that bought her, because there's like corpses on the ground too. So this is like
Mm.
very clearly after she's kind of come back from the shadow the oh my gosh, I'm gonna get on the spot for the lore, the Shadow Realms, and
I'm terrible with the lore. It's okay. I actually I should know this because last week Taylor quizzed me on Leviah. It was this lady. I keep wanting to say Bartholomew, but it's not Bartholomew. It's Bartamont or something
yeah,
like that. But yeah.
yeah, Barthamont.
Oh,
I
yes.
have it pulled up
Okay.
because I'm. But yeah, no, like in the art, it's so it's like she's standing in the mansion and there's like corpses on the ground out like all out in front of her. Like she's just kind of come back with all her demonic power and taken her vengeance on the people that held her captive. Um, and that's cool. And like you can see that just immediately, like you can know nothing about the game, you can know nothing about the character, and you can just kind of immediately get that just from the art. And I kind of love that.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I think a lot of the heroes do a great job of that, right? I mean, I know it's gonna sound like so typical, but like I'm gonna talk about Reinar. Like you look at Reinar, and you're just like, okay. I mean, like that is such a brutish like art,
Uh,
like not even just his character design, like just like everything going on in the background is very brutal,
yeah.
but
Um,
which is really
yeah,
cool.
and like I love the fact that because we get the young heroes and the old heroes,
Hmm.
like you get kind of two pieces of the same story. Talking about Leviah again, like you can see from the young Leviah where she's still very clearly human, and it's just
Hmm.
this young girl who's kind of in the courtyard of this mansion, and she's kind of practicing these little like ritual circles and like making her first little attempts at this dark magic, and then you flip to the adult, and then you can see like how she's clearly come from just this young girl dabbling in this art to this like demonic entity who's just murdered everything. And like that's really cool. I love that. Like I love the story, and the lore for this game is so wonderful.
It really is, and that's a cool point about the young and adult version of the heroes is you get two ends of the spectrum on the story, and all the hero like the cards like instance, non-attack actions, they all fill in the blanks in between those, which is really neat.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I definitely love that you can get a really firm grasp on the lore and the story of this game without ever having to like open a lore book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the art really does a lot for that.
It really does. Now, I want to talk about playing the game.
Sure.
Outside of being such a talented artist and card alterer, you're a prolific Prism player and player in general. I want to get a little feel for kind of how the playing became, like you became so good at it. I want to know about that, but like also what have you qualified for so far, because you have qualified for things.
So yeah, I've actually only been playing Flesh and Blood for maybe about 6 months now. I actually started playing the game just before Everfest. But I've been playing Magic and lots of other CCG. Like I've played CCGs for years and years. Like I picked up Magic and the Star Wars CCG both when I was in high school in the 90s. I can date myself. But so I've had a lot of CCG experience. So like I tell people, I'm like, oh, I only played this game for like 6 months, but then there's also like decades of other CCG experience behind it. Yeah, so I picked up the game, like I said, just before Everfest. I remember the Farewell to Welcome to Wraith draft was the first time I had ever actually played the game.
Oh wow!
I got like a half-finished Ira deck welcome intro, and then T-Bo, a good friend of mine, let me play like a half of a game with Control Katsu of all things. Great first intro to the game. But we didn't even finish that game, and then like the next day he was like, yeah, there's a draft, you should come play, you don't need any cards. And I'm like, okay, I know how to draft Magic, I can hammer my way through this. So the first time I ever actually completed a game was the Welcome to Wraith draft, and I went 2-1 in that draft.
There you go. I mean, obviously you had a knack for it.
Yeah, so I think that was the first time I was like, all right, I really click with this game. I really like this game. I understand this game. I want to play this. So then it was just like a couple of weeks after that was when ProQuest Season 1 started. And T and a couple of other guys are like, oh, you're going to come to some of the ProQuests. I was like, I've been playing this game for like 2 weeks. I don't know what I'm doing. I literally don't even have a complete deck. So like I missed like the first week of ProQuest seasons for Season 1. And then like my local store, shout out to Star City Games, is my local shop. Their ProQuest was the second week. And so T's like, you're coming to our local game, right? I'm like, all right, fine. I'll come to this one. I'll just kind of hammer my way through it. And I took 9th.
Oh.
So
that's still good. I mean,
yeah,
for only a couple weeks.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I was laughing. I was like, I don't know if I'm really happy or really upset about this. But yeah, so then T and a couple of other guys are like, all right, so now you're definitely coming with us to the rest of them. And so we kind of road tripped for a couple of weeks and hit all the other like nearby RTNs. And in my first, like, this is like after playing this game for like 2 months, I played 5 RTNs. I got 9th 3 times.
Oof.
and made top 4 once. I have to give a shout out. The one that I top forward, my top 8 opponent was on chain, and I will never forget this. My top 8 opponent was on chain. I had literally never even seen chain before. I had no idea what he did. I had no idea how it worked. T had to pull me aside. He's like, "All right, this is what this hero does. This is what his deck does. This is your strategy against this deck." And I'm like, "Okay." My opponent was super friendly, super nice, and I told him, I was like, "I don't know what any of your cards do. I'm really sorry." And like, so like, if you sit down in a top 8 match and your opponent's like, "I literally don't know how your deck works," you're just like, "This is gonna be an easy match." He took his super time, like walked me through everything, explained how every card worked, and then I won that game.
Well,
and I
hey,
felt so
listen.
bad.
Here at Fresh and Buds, we appreciate the Big Buds energy of your opponent and being super nice and
Oh yeah, super
but,
great person.
But we also support you destroying him.
Yeah, it was funny. T tells the story better than I do because like I had no idea what's going. So like we get to like it's like I just went to fatigue him. I'm on Prism, of course. So I went to fatigue him. We get to the end of the game and he has an Ursa out. And like he's in fatigue, but he has an Ursa, and I'm so terrified because I'm like, I don't know what his cards do, I don't know what he has, I don't know what surprises. I'm just like full blocking the Ursa every turn and not killing it. So like I have like 3 of my friends here, and like he and all my friends like keep like watching the game and then like walking away, and he's just like, "What is she doing? Why does she do this? She's gonna lose this game. Oh my god, if she loses this game, I'm gonna be so mad." And then come back and then they'll watch for a little longer, and then they just like go off again and talk amongst themselves again, and then come back. It was ridiculous. And then I finally found a window to kill the Ursa, and then I won the game from there. But yeah, it was so. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue how any of this works. I was so like terrified. And T was like, "If you lost that game, I was never speaking to you again."
Well, shout out to T, who's been on the podcast. I think, God, probably like 20 episodes ago. But it's funny. I mean, you're describing that. I know exactly that scenario where you're watching your friend play and you have to like walk away or else you're gonna lose it because you're like, what are they doing? Oh my god. Which is, you know what, that's like part of the things I love about in person play, which is why I love Flesh and Blood so much. But so you qualified. Did you qualify for
So no, I didn't qualify for Jersey. I was like I said, I was pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'd been playing like 2 weeks longer, I think I probably could have qualified. Like I say, I had 3 nights, and I lost several games just on like weird interactions that I just didn't know because I was a new player. But so then Lille qualifiers came out, and I did qualify for Lille. I did pretty well in that Pro Tour season. I think I had the first and then 2 top 4 finishes in ProQuest that season, and then I'm qualified for nationals. I had 2 top 4 finishes in RTN season, I think. No, 3 top 4 finishes. So yeah, like I've been doing pretty well and pretty just enjoying the game and playing a lot of Prism.
Yeah, well, your days are numbered. But yeah, that's awesome. I know that you won't be able to go to France, which is a shame. But that's a big weekend. It's like that's a lot. But yeah. I am very stoked to be playing nationals with you in September down in Charlotte, which is going to be awesome. I cannot wait. Now is kind of obviously you've shown your fangs in a way that you can like be competitive with this game. Is there a focus on competitive play for you kind of going forward? And on top of that, is there do you find it hard to balance the playing side and the creating side?
So yeah, I think I found that I'm really enjoying the competitive side of this game, and it kind of gives me a chance to flex a little that in a way that I haven't had a chance to do in a long time. Talking about balancing the competitive and the professional side, I kind of had to stop playing professional Magic for a long time because of my work. like I say, I was attending a Star City Open about every 3 weeks, so I was perpetually traveling, but not playing. Like I was going to all these big events and I was always there, but it's really hard to justify like playing in an event where you're like, I can play in this event and maybe cash, maybe make a little bit of money, or I can just work the same event and make, as much money as like second place prize, just guaranteed by just doing my job. Uh, so, yeah, I had spent a long time where I just couldn't play Magic beyond like an FNM level. And so as of right now, I'm not actually like working any Flesh and Blood events, although there's a possibility that could change. Like I would, if Channel Fireball called me up tomorrow and was like, hey, do you want to booth at Worlds, I'd have to seriously consider it. So going forward, we'll see.
Channel Fireball, if you're out there listening, and we know that you are, I mean, you heard it here first. Just saying.
So yeah, like if that happens, then we'll see. I really do enjoy the competitive side of this game, and I would be very loath to entirely give it up. But I also really love my job. I love what I do for a living. I love, being able to do art and be self-employed and, travel and meet all these people and just hang out with everybody. And like, this is my job. This is my full-time career, and it's great. So we'll see. We'll see what the future has to hold for both professionally and competitively.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, either way, you're going to kill it. So, excited for what that holds for you, whether it is one way or the other. Now, I want to get to one of my favorite segments of the show, my Fresh Faves. This is where I'm going to ask you a couple of your favorites in the game, and unfortunately, I have a feeling I know what your answers are going to be for the most part. But I'm going to ask you some of your favorites. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
And I will say this: I thought about this a lot, knowing this was coming. I am going to not answer any Prism cards for any of these questions.
Oh, yes.
Well, so this will be like fresh second faves. But I think that gives a little bit more interesting than just me listing Prism, Luminaris, Phantasmal Footstep, Arclight, Sentinel.
Arclight. Oh my god, I don't even like hearing that on the pod. I might have to bleep it out. That's actually pretty fair, because when I had Mansant on, we did non-Levia fresh faves because it's just...
And I do like some of this other stuff too. Like everything else is still honest answers and stuff that I think are genuinely really cool and really interesting.
All right, well, let's start with your favorite non-Prism hero.
So this is my like one little cheat. I will say I think it's Dromai right now.
Okay.
I've been playing a lot of Dromai, and I still just can't get quite past the Illusionist flair. There's something about that playstyle that just really resonates with me. Plus, dragons. Like, come on, dragons are cool.
I'm actually a fan of Dromai as well. I think it's because there's no real Spectra going on with it, and we'll talk about Spectra in a bit. But what is your favorite weapon?
Technoplasma pistol, actually.
Ooh.
I mean, so when I first started, I was actually very back and forth between choosing Prism and choosing Dash. There is an alternate timeline Mara out there that is a just solid Dash main. I think the flavor behind Mechanologist is really cool. And I think the idea of having this weapon that you can just like periodically like upgrade throughout the game is a really cool, like, I think it's both just a really good weapon and it's really flavorful, and I think it's really neat.
I've been publicly not the most favorable of Dash and the Mechanologist class. But I will say, because I just don't think I'm like a steampunk, I don't think I'm really into, like, I feel like if I'm into like a brutal lady with tentacle hair, I'm probably not really into the steampunk stuff. However, I will say I was listening to a cover of Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine. It was very dark and like, grungy. And I was like, I really want a Shadow Mechanologist, and I hope it happens.
I've actually been saying for a while, I think Shadow Mechanologist would be the coolest class.
So sweet.
Just think about it. You get both blood debt and boost.
It's so cool. Oh my god. Well, it'd probably be too good at that point. But
Yeah.
yeah, but that sounds awesome. Now, what is your favorite equipment?
So this one I was really back and forth on. There's a couple of big ones that I think are really cool, but I think I'm gonna say Storm Striders.
Ooh.
I like Wizard a lot. I like being able to play on our turn. Um, but Storm Striders is the kind of equipment that enables really good, really interesting lines of play. You know, where you've got this once per game where you can pull off some really crazy combos and some really interesting deep lines that you couldn't otherwise do. And I think that's knowing when to use it and when to hold off and when to set up for these big turns, I think is a really cool part about playing both Icelander and Kano.
That's a great answer. That is a great answer. Now, what is your favorite non-hero, non-weapon, non-equipment card? Your attack actions, your actions, your instants, the run-of-mill cards.
All right, this is my one other illusionist cheat. Invoke Uvia.
Oh.
She's a big pink dragon. Like, come on. Like I can't not.
That's fair. You know, that's very fair. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to hold it against you. As I said,
Yeah.
I don't hate on Dromai like I do Prism.
Yeah. Plus, like I actually do like the idea of just like the Dromai playstyle I really like is just the swarms of little Ashwings. I think is my favorite way to play Dromai. And Uvia like really lends herself to that playstyle very well.
Yeah, and Uvia is, I mean, you know, a lot of people call Dromai the Dragon Mommy, but Uvia is actually the Dragon Mommy. So, you know, the real hero of the story.
Yeah.
Let's get to our main topic, which I've in the show notes here. I've called it the Illusionist Menace, because I want to talk a little bit about Prism, and because we are, you know, 2 points away from Living Legend, and you know I enjoy our budding friendship, Mara, but I think it's time to get down to brass tacks. And I want you to explain yourself. Why are we only 2 points away from Living Legend?
Because I didn't test enough against Phi. My first RTN, I took second at the RTN because I didn't test enough against Phi, and still ended up doing really well against most of the Phis in that RTN, and then played one more Phi in the finals, and then lost the finals. And then figured out after that game my sideboard strategy for Phi, and I've been doing a lot better into Phi. But yeah, if I had played a couple more practice games into Phi going into RTN season, Prism would probably be LL'd. So on behalf of all Prism mains, I apologize, and I have learned from my mistakes, and I promise I will correct that mistake in Nationals.
Well, I mean, you know. Well, first of all, I want to ask about the game that you know you lost, Mara. Was it close?
Yeah, it was actually it was a pretty good game. My opponent played really well. It was a very chill game, and I think I always appreciate any game that's just very like. I think it's actually one of the things I really liked about RTN season was kind of once you got past that first top 8 game, then everything just felt very like relaxed after that. It's just like, all right, we've all kind of got what we came here for. We can be just really chill, really sociable. My opponent was really cool. The game was good, but yeah, he got there in the end, and I learned that I need to just take out a ton more Spectra and just bring in literally every card in my sideboard that blocks.
So what I am gathering here is that, well, first of all, that all the Prism stands out there should be heralding, pun intended, this opponent of yours for beating you and letting you all play with her a little bit longer. But also, he is the real villain for really just winning. and we'll leave your opponent anonymous, but you know, if I see you out in the streets, you better watch. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna have to warn him.
No, do not warn him. You know, he can come on the podcast and I'll berate him instead. You know, so you know, all jokes aside, you know, Prism is no doubt an excellent deck and has been for a very long time, and it would be a miracle if Prism is not the next hero to hit Living Legend. Quite literally, only has to win one more thing. Now, I dislike Prism quite a bit for many reasons, and I wanted to ask you, as a Prism player, can you see why she's annoying to a lot of people?
Yeah, absolutely. But like, at the same time, I think that's part of what makes Prism a good deck, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the fundamental nature of Illusionist. Like, an Illusionist isn't going to beat you by punching you in the head really hard or throwing big fireballs. An Illusionist is gonna beat you by confounding you and having you, swinging at air and distracted by all these other things that are going on. I feel like that's kind of the, both Prism and Dromai still kind of keep that. I'm glad that the Dromai does still keep that kind of flair, and I think that's what really attracted me to the class. Is you really, it's this death by 1,000 cuts and keeping your opponent guessing and keeping your opponent on their toes and forcing them to make decisions, that can be a very frustrating play experience, but at the same time is very much the core to what I think makes Prism and the Illusionist class really iconic.
Mm-hmm. I guess you could say that Prism is, from a gameplay point, linked to her flavor. It's really, kind of firing on all cylinders. It's well done from a top-down design aspect. And maybe, this is something I've thought about a lot, Mara, is maybe she is annoying because she's so hard to play correctly against. And, maybe I am not a good player. And, and I think maybe that is what frustrates me initially. And at this point, I know how to play against Prism, and I can beat Prism. And I think, most of my hatred towards the deck is mostly jest and kind of being, an idiot. But I could see why some newer players, kind of go up against Prism and they're like, well, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, because there's so many. She presents so many decisions for your opponent, and I don't think any other hero does that, right? I think a lot of heroes present their own decisions to themselves, and that makes them very complex. Like Chain is one of those heroes that, you have like a plethora of lines and sequencing to like really like think out. And Prism also has that like kind of inherent like sequencing and how you want to do things. But on top of that, she's presenting these really like interesting decisions that your opponent has to make. Like, do I care about that aura? And speaking of auras, I want to talk about Spectra. As it stands, and I think, I think Spectra's like one of those mechanics. It's just like it makes, I understand why it is the way it is, but do you think that Spectra is a well-designed mechanic, or do you think it was a little too hard to kind of get around, I guess is the word I'm looking for?
So this is definitely a complex question. From just a pure mechanical standpoint, I think I do mostly like Spectra, just because, like you say, I think the fundamental for Illusionist is making your opponent make difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I do worry a little bit about Dromai. I think one of the reasons that people have been a little hard on Dromai lately is most of Dromai's decisions that she presents aren't that hard. It's, hey, there's a 5/5 dragon that's melting my equipment every turn. Should I kill that or should I attack face? I should probably attack that thing. Hey, there's 3 1/1s. I don't think I want to worry about those. Unless I have some easy, quick ways to do small amounts of damage. The decisions Dromai presents to a player are relevant, but they're not really difficult. But Prism, because of the Spectra mechanic, makes a lot of these decisions very hard, because you're like, okay, well, that that merciful retribution is pinging me for a couple of damage here and there. Is it worth spending so much of my turn to deal with it? What are the costs of having to deal with these Spectre Auras? So like from a pure mechanical standpoint, I think I like the core of the mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I think I have with Spectra is that it is very unintuitive to a newer player.
Mm-hmm.
I have had countless games where I'll be at our local armory and we'll have a new player, and I have to stop the entire game and be like, okay, I'm going to play this aura. I need to explain to you how this works and why it works. And I see a lot of new players with just blank expressions where there's like, I'm just going to believe the things you tell me. None of that made any sense. And I do think that's a pretty big negative of the mechanic, is that it is very difficult for a new player to really wrap their brain around, because it's very layered in the mechanics of the game and the way resolving attacks works, and it's very kind of counterintuitive. And I do hope that, like, as we see more illusionists in the future, that they find some way to kind of replicate that difficult decision tree in a way that is more intuitive to a newer player.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you 100%. Now, I will say, that's something I did not really think about, right? The new player issue with it, right? However, and to use an old Magic term, Monarch was, I think, what you would call an expert level set, right? It introduced talents, had these complex themes and mechanics. It had Leviah, but
Can't win them all.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's relax. I would say charging your soul with Bolton is way harder to do than turn off Blood Debt, but but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, and I would say that I think they recognize that new player like kind of downfall, right? And the reason I say that is I look at Dromai and they did not include Spectra in whatever Dromai's doing, and it is a lot more intuitive. Like, yeah, I either kill these dragons or they kill me, right? It's not so much like, oh, my turn's done if I kill one of these dragons. It's like it seems a little more balanced out, though. It definitely, after seeing the power of Prism, you look at Dromai, you're like, oh my god. Like, they get to keep attacking with Go Again, which, you're just like, oh no, this is not Illusionist the way I know it. But, and I realize, yeah, go ahead.
As you say, so it's not even the Go Again. I think that's the thing that always kind of bugs me with Dromai. It's the on hits.
Yeah.
Because, like, attacking a dragon, like, say, we're talking about, like, presenting difficult decisions to your opponent. And attacking a dragon still is sometimes a difficult decision. Maybe not as difficult as attacking a Spectra. But when you're getting free on hits that the Illusionist player can't do anything about, I think is one time when I kind of feel like, oh, I'm not actually presenting a decision for my opponent. I'm handing them an advantage. Like, not only is it the correct choice to attack my dragon, it is like actively advantageous. And I think that's the only real qualm I have with the way the dragons interact. I think I'd be fine with the Go Again. Just the on hits are the one that killed me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And but I understand why they had to do it, because they had to like kind of do that kind of triangle thing in limited for Uprising, right? Fi just spanks Dromai, and Dromai has all the natural arcane barrier against Icelander and whatever. But once it kind of like expands into constructed, it kind of falls apart a little bit. However, I will say Dromai is still a pretty potent deck.
my limited rating in Dromai disagrees with you.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, there are ways to do it, but yeah, no. Dromai,
I
at least
I
in
am
limited.
renowned. I'm renowned on this side of the world for just hard forcing Dromai in every draft that I'm in. Uh, and like I said, I've done very well on Dromai.
I know, yeah. I think Dromai. That's the thing. Like, the beauty of the Uprising format is actually that, while they kind of have that kind of triangle thing going on, I think any deck can win any
Oh, I
matchup.
totally agree. I
And
love this draft format so much. This is by far my favorite draft format.
it's so good. It's so good. And I'm very bad at it. I need to get better at it for Nats, but that's neither here nor there.
Always force Dromai. That's the secret.
Now I realize that I'm grilling you as if you designed the cards. But if you did design the cards, would you have done anything different with Prism, or are you kind of cool with where she is? I mean, obviously potent, very strong deck, and very close to Living Legend, as we've said many times. But is there something you would have done a little bit different?
So I don't know. Like, I think at the core, Prism is a really good deck. I think the fact that she's about to Living Legend is proof of that. We've talked about Spectra a lot, and I think there are definitely ways to change Spectra, and I'm not entirely sure what those are. Like, I've actually, you presented me the show notes of this, and I was this question was on there, and I've been really actually thinking about it for a while. I'd like to see some way to preserve that element of making difficult choices. That like, okay, there are real costs to attacking these auras. But without the mechanical baggage of the way Spectra functions. And I feel pretty confident. Like, LSS has constantly surprised us with really interesting mechanics and really cool mechanics. And I'm eagerly looking forward to seeing whatever the third illusionist will be, and what their flavor of illusion will be. And I think that'll be kind of cool. So yeah, I think there's definitely ways to do it. I'm just not sure exactly what the best way is.
Here's one question about Spectra. Maybe we talked about the on hits for Dromai. What if Spectra is as is, but you get on hits, right? So you lose your action point, but you get the on hit. Would that have been not good? Like that would have made Spectra just very bad.
I think that would make it more confusing.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Go Again is an on hit, which is the reason that Spectre doesn't work. So like, I think it would take some mechanical, like, if we found some way to write the mechanic, I think that would definitely be interesting. But I think that would just end up making it more confusing to explain to a player why you're like, okay, your other on hits happen, but your Go Again doesn't.
Yeah.
I might be more interested to see, like, okay, talking about like Dromai getting on, like, if Spectra had the Go Again but like without the on hits. I don't know. Like, there's definitely, because then the dragons do also have at least, like, the health thresholds where you can't just poke a dragon with just your smallest attack and have it just break.
True.
Although, which, talking about confusing parts of Spectra, I actually very recently at one of my ProQuests won a game against a Phi who didn't break a Parable of Humility didn't break a Parable of Humility with a Phoenix Flame and used like a larger attack. And I asked him after the game, I was like, why didn't you just break it with your Phoenix Flame? He was like, because it's Parable of Humility, it has 0 attack, I couldn't break it. And I was like, actually, even a 0 power attack can break a Spectre. He's like, how does that work? And this is like a player at a ProQuest. This is like a legitimate, not a new player. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, nah, nothing about Spectre makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't have health. It's just doesn't want to be hit or whatever. But the number of times I've had to explain to a Prism mirror by using fractal replication with no other illusionist attacks on the chain just to break Spectra, and they're like, it doesn't copy anything, it doesn't matter, it's a 0 cost attack, it's
hits and falls apart, but it works. And like I've had Prism mains be like, that doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, it actually does.
It works. It works.
So, yeah. Spectra is definitely a keyword that probably could use some revising.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think they're gonna continue along with the Phantasm keyword, and that actually, because you mentioned the next Illusionist, and I've talked about it quite a bit. Put in my tinfoil hat, but my I think very real prediction is the next Illusionist. Like we've seen the yellow pitch Illusionist, we've seen the red pitch Illusionist. So the next Illusionist, the blue pitch one, and it is going to be spooky because we've seen Frightmare and Ghostly Touch, and it's going to be some kind of spooky Illusionist that cares about things getting popped, and it's going to have some way to make your things get popped and you be able to do more things. What do you think about that? Would you be into a spooky Illusionist that cares about blue pitches?
I think I'm here for it, and I'm gonna main it. That sounds awesome. I mean, like I said, I just love the Illusionist, the mechanic, the feel, the flavor, like all of it just hits all my buttons. So yeah, like when we get our spooky ghost Illusionist, I'll come back on the show and we'll talk strategy for spooky ghost Illusionist.
Ironically enough, I'm all about that. Maybe it's the light Illusionist that I don't really like, but spooky Illusionist? That should just be a talent, spooky. But so
we're gonna get a shadow Illusionist eventually.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, and it'll be cool. Yeah. It'll be very cool. Yeah, I think shadow anything is gonna be really cool. But until then, we're inevitably going to lose Prism probably before we see the next Illusionist printed. Mm-hmm. Who else looks good for you to play once Prism goes away? You mentioned Dromai. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing my nationals testing, and I'm like having to kind of balance. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do my Prism testing and prep for that, and then I've got my side decks of okay, if Prism goes out, what's my plan? I have to have backup plans already just in case. Dromai has definitely been my number one. I've been spending a lot of time on Dromai. I think that deck's got a lot of potential. Dromai's been really fun too because we talk about Prism and Prism has been a pretty solved deck. There's variants and there's sideboard choices and there's some slight, cuts here and there that you can make to change things up. But you look at a Prism deck and 90% of Prism decks are, 65, 70 cards identical.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at Dromai and I see all these other Dromai lists, and the Dromai lists are 30, 40, 50 cards apart, and it's been a blast. I love this part of the game. This where no one's really sure what the answers are. Everybody's kind of in testing and trying to figure out what the best build is. And so I've been there with Dromai a lot, and really putting a lot of work into that. I've also been a lot in love with Icelander. Okay. I picked up Icelander for Blitz just a little bit before Uprising came out, and kind of was digging that for a while, and then they announced her for CC, and so I've been putting some work there. I not as much as Dromai, but I'm still I love the play style. I love the way she just gets to kind of play that really disruptive game. I like making your opponent make hard choices, and I think if I can't do that with an Illusionist, the ice heroes are definitely kind of appealing for that. Make you have to figure out, all right, how do you want to play this turn when everything costs 3 extra? So Icelander's been on the list. My safety net pick right now is if I can't find a Dromai list that I like, and if I don't feel comfortable on Icelander, I think I might fall back on Lexi. Lexi has that same kind of really disruptive playstyle, but Lexi is a known quantity. Lexi has lists that we know are good, and I think Lexi is potentially well positioned into this meta. So that'll be that's my hierarchy of kind of fallbacks. If Prism LLs before Nationals, I'm gonna work on Dromai. If I don't feel confident on Dromai, I'm gonna look at Icelander. If I still don't really feel like Icelander's got a good list yet, then I'll probably fall back on Lexi.
I do think it's really cool, that thing you mentioned about Dromai, how like everybody's all over with how to build her right now, and which is interesting, because she's been out for like a month now, and people have played like a whole season of RTNs with her, and a lot of heroes, their kind of lists are dictated by the weapon that they use, and Dromai only has one weapon. I mean, I guess technically she could use
Iris.
Iris. Yeah.
Iris Dromai, let's go.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm sure it's out there. Like if you search FabDB right now, you know that that's coming up somewhere. But
I will say it has been discussed in my testing for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
we're like, this is possible. Do we want to? No, there's no way.
5 minutes. I would say it's probably 5 minutes too long.
Yeah. I mean, like, you have to, when you're testing, sometimes you do kind of have to entertain weird ideas, because occasionally, like, weird ideas are like, oh no, that's actually pretty cool. No, that actually works. But a lot of times you throw out a weird idea and then you're just like, no, this is a bad idea. Okay, but then you've addressed it, and then you can move on.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, so I mean, I would love to see the Irish Dromai list, start popping up. But no, it is super cool about Dromai. It's like, nobody knows what the optimal build is. The Dracana Optimi build is, and that's very cool. But
we're not even sure if Dracana Optimi is in the Dracana Optimic build.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's a little too expensive, but
I will say I have him in my build right now. I have 2 builds that I've been testing. He is in one of them.
Well, he blocks for 3. That's like
that's
actually
nothing. He's a red pitch that blocks for 3. Don't disregard that.
Yeah, that maybe sometimes will get snuck out there, but Yeah. But that's gonna kind of do it for us talking about this the Illusionist Menace, that we're dealing with right now. But I do want to say, Mar, this was an absolute pleasure to have you on. This is a long time coming, and I've enjoyed our friendship, and I'm glad that you bring Big Bud's energy like all the time, and it's something that I really love and respect. So I want to thank you for coming on. And I would also really like for you to plug anything that you'd like to plug right now.
So thank you for having me. Like, this is really, like I say, this has been a blast. We'd kind of talked about this at the Pro Tour, and I've been looking forward to it ever since. As far as all my stuff, it's just at Blackwing Studio on Twitter is usually like the best place to find me. I post all my altars up there. It's blackwingaltars at gmail.com if you ever need to email me. But again, like, you can just send me a DM on Twitter if you want to talk about commissions, things like that too. That's usually pretty easy. I have an Etsy store. It's also just Blackwing Studio at Etsy. I have a whole line of custom tokens that I do, and I've been slowly working out doing more new tokens as time goes on. And speaking of new tokens, I will be debuting my Patreon really soon, which will also be just Blackwing Studio, where I'll be doing, a lot of the early looks on some of the new tokens. Like, I've got an Ash token that I'm working on right now, and then I'm gonna have an Ash ring coming up after that. And so the Patreon will get a little bit like more of the behind the scenes, like some of the sketches and some of the like some early access to some of the tokens and things like that, as well as free altars and things like that too. I think that's it. Etsy, Patreon, Twitter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope the buds out there check all that out, and it will be in the the description or the show notes below, and as well for anybody who needs some links, and they will be there. As always, you can find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. You can join the Discord, the Buds, which is available for anyone, and hopefully you can get in there, Mara. We're missing you.
I know. I've been talking about this a lot. Can we just have like one Discord for all the content creators? I'm in like 7 Flesh and Blood Discords, and I need to join yours. I need to join Flakes. I need to join the Flesh and Pods. I'm really active on the Pitch Perfect Discord. But then
Okay.
like I've got like 3 local groups. I've got like the big like we just need one like all the content creators to have one Discord.
I'm sure we'll
Because
get
let's be
there
real,
at
it's all the
once.
same people.
Yeah, no, yeah, it probably is, but
It really is. It's all the same people.
I mean, it's like, well, that's the beauty of it, right? We're such a wonderful community that we all just love each other, and
Yeah.
it's awesome. But other than that, everybody can check out the YouTube, subscribe, and all that jazz. And I always like to end the episode talking a little bit about food, Mara. And I know you live in Virginia. Is there any Virginia like cuisine that you really enjoy, or something local to you that you just really love eating?
Oh gosh. I don't know. We've got so many good restaurants up here. I'm vegetarian, so that narrows a little bit, but like we've got some fantastic we've got some really good Thai places up here. We've got some great Indian cuisine. We've got some amazing Mexican up here. We've got burger joints. We've got like all kinds of stuff.
What's your favorite
I
vegetarian meal from a Thai place?
From a Thai place, so I usually get like pad with sen is really good. Or like any kind of curry. I am renowned for my love of very very hot food. Uh,
Me too.
my typical order is I'll tell the waitress to make it Thai hot and then double it. And that usually gets roughly close to the bottom of my like I'm not quite bored of this heat tolerance.
Oh boy. Well, you know, I love that myself. I mean, I eat a lot of Indian food, and I always like it like Indian spicy,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is. I just love like sweating and being in pain. I don't like it when I'm like, I don't like the summer, which is weird. But like if I'm eating something, it's making me like sweat and like whoa, this is really spicy. Like I'm in heaven. So
Oh gosh.
another
Yeah.
reason we're kindred spirits, Mara.
If you want one last tiny story, talking about at the Pro Tour. So I made day 2 of the calling, and we went out to Buffalo Wild Wings to celebrate. And
Lovely.
they have like a spicy hot wings challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the lady about it, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do the challenge, but I'm vegetarian. Can I just get it on the cauliflower wings?" And so she's like, "Well, no, the rules say you have to do it with the hot wings." And I was like, oh, "Okay, but I'm vegetarian, so I can't." She's like, "Well, sorry, you just can't do the challenge." I was like, "All right, just bring me those wings anyway. Like, just put it, just bring me the cauliflower wings on that sauce." And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, you just want it just for a meal?" I'm like, "Yeah, and bring me an extra side of the sauce for dipping." And she's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So then I just sat there and like she just sat and watched while I was just casually eating these wings. And she's like, "That's not hot to you?" And I'm like, "It's okay." So she's like, "I'm gonna go get you the headband." They have a little headband for the people that pass the hot wing challenge. She's like, "I'm gonna go get you the headband." So I have it. It's in my bag still that I keep all my cards in. It's my little like good luck charm.
I love that. I love that. You know, that's the mindset of a champion, and you know that's just awesome. Well, you know, I'm gonna have some spicy food tonight, and
Oh, me too.
I hope everybody has a great week.